Hi everyone, I am in the kitchen today making a chocolate ganache torte. We are having dinner with our friends tomorrow night and I am making the dessert, and so I thought I'd bring you guys along with me as I make it to show you how quick and easy it is that you can whip up this dessert in maybe 30 minutes tops and it'd be ready and set within a few hours. It's a really quick, easy dessert. It's really good. It is rich because it's a chocolate ganache torte, but it's going to pair so well with the dessert wine that we have for tomorrow night. So let's get cooking. I've got a few things already prepped. The first thing we're going to do is make the crust. Now the crust for this can be chocolate cookies. I've got Oreo cookies that we're going to crumble just because this is also what I have in the house. Plus I really do want that chocolate on chocolate for this dessert. You could use crushed nuts to make a crust. You could also do other chocolate cookies. There's chocolate wafers. You could even do graham crackers. You could do a golden Oreo. You can change it up. I just like the chocolate on chocolate, so that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and get those processed, and then I've already got my butter melted, and so I'm going to say possibly about 1.5 to 2 sleeves of a family size Oreo. When it comes to this part, I don't measure. Now the recipes, most people use like a 9-inch pan. I actually have this rectangle tart pan, and it has a bottom that removes, and so I purchased this years ago to do something with, and so I thought this would be a great little size for us to use for tomorrow night's dinner, or I should say for the dessert. So all right, let's get these processed and get it going, and I can show you. Now the great thing about this is you can put this crust together and this tart together without baking anything. However, I do recommend that you do bake the crust in a 350-degree oven for 5 to 6 minutes, which is what we're going to do. What that does is it allows the crust to stay crispy and crunchy. If you don't, it'll just be a bit softer. I prefer that little bit of that crunch, so it changes some of the texture when you're eating the dessert, because you're going to have a very smooth ganache. And then you get that little bit of that crunch from the cookie crumble crust. And so, but it really is a personal preference, and if you don't have time to bake it, don't worry about it. Just throw it together and you'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get my Oreos open here. And now if you have a larger food processor, which I do, you can use that so that you don't have to do this in batches, but I'd rather just use my small one and do it twice just to save from having to haul that thing out. And so we're going to do one sleeve first. So I've got a bowl here. I'm just going to dump the crumbs into. And I think I am going to just do a half of another sleeve to start, and then I can kind of eyeball it. So depending on the size of your tart pan, the size of your pie pan, because a lot of people will put these in a pie pan, which you can use. You can even just use like a 8x8 pan, whatever you have will work too. It's a little bit more than half a sleeve. All right, you know what? I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the two. Oh, that was close. Do 2 full sleeves, and if I have anything extra, I can sprinkle them on top if I want. Okay, so now, and the reason why I decided to just go ahead and do all 2. And so I'm going to stop right there. I'll leave a little bit out and extra. We can always add more. I do have 6 tablespoons of butter already melted, so I'm going to go ahead and just pour this on and mix it together. Now if they're too wet, I'll show you what that'll look like. I can go ahead and add in more of the crumbs, because once you pour the melted butter on here, they are going to compress down, and so it's not going to be as much of a volume as it is right now. Okay, so I've got it all mixed up, and hopefully you can see it's still a little, you want it melted, you want the melted butter to bind the cookie crumbs, but what you want to make sure that is there's no oil when you're stirring it and you're done, that there's not a pool of oil at the bottom of the bowl, and there's not, and you can pick it up if it looks like it's going to form. If it's too greasy, like if you see a lot of butter still in there, this is where taking a few extra of the cookie crumbs comes in handy. So again, I'm just going to add a touch more. So this is still 2 sleeves. If you have a little bit of extra cookie crumbs left over, it's going to be okay. My daughter loves to take them and then top them onto her ice cream, so you could utilize it in other ways, but this is looking much better. It's absorbing more of the butter. It's one of those balancing acts. You want to have it where it'll bind together and hold up, so when you cut it, it's together, but then at the same time, you don't want it to be so oily that it just leaks everywhere. So, all right, I'm gonna get our spray, and I'm just gonna spray. Okay, so I'm just going to spray my pan real quick just to ensure. I'm just doing it over the sink. I know you guys couldn't see that, but just so that way I don't get it all over the floor or over the countertop. I just want to spray it so that way it will release easily, because once it's done baking and cooled, then all I have to do is just pop the bottom of the pan up and take it out and be able to slice it for dinner. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some cookie crumbles, and this will tell me exactly if the 2 sleeves were too much or if it'll be just enough. Now it's going to look like a lot right now, but keep in mind I'm going to be pressing it in to the pan, and my hands are clean. I know there are a lot of people that freak out, oh, if you touch food. Well, you touch your own food, and these friends are really more like family, and so they know that I have a clean kitchen. Pretty particular about that, and we understand food safety, so don't freak out if you see me touching everything. My hands are clean. I'm just going to go ahead and press this in. And I'm going to be pressing it all the way up on the edges, and I'll show you guys as soon as I get that done what it looks like on camera. And a lot of times what I'll do is when I put the cookie crumbs in here, I'll start to push the edges up first. And if you'll see, I don't know if you can tell, like you can see the bottom of the pan. I'm not worried about that right now because all I'm doing is trying to push up to the edge and fill that in first. So that way I've got a good crust on the side of the tart. And then I'll take any extra and then fill it in. So this is why I always like to make just a little bit more, just so I have enough to work with when I am making various desserts, either tarts or cheesecakes, because a lot of times I use an Oreo crust for a cheesecake, especially for my banana split cheesecake that I love to do, or for our son's birthday. Ever since he was young, his favorite dessert is Oreo cheesecake. All of my kids get to pick out, you know, their favorite birthday cake or their favorite dessert, and his has always been Oreo cheesecake, and so I always do an Oreo, obviously, crust on that one. So I've got all my edges in. I feel like they're pretty good, so now I'm just going to press down on the bottom. I do want to make sure that the crust isn't too thick yet too thin. So you don't want it to barely cover the bottom, but at the same time you don't want it so thick that when people bite into the tart, all they're getting is crust and no filling. You want to try to find that balance if you can, and you'll be able to tell as you're putting it together with your hands, or with your fingers I should say, as you press, how thick it feels as you're pressing down. This is why I like to use my hands, and I tell people not to freak out, they're clean, is because you get a feel for your thickness of your crust. And so you can't do that with the spoon, because if I take this spoon and I'm pressing down, all I'm feeling is the spoon. I cannot tell how thick the crust is because I've got the spoon. So there we go. I think we're pretty good there. So I am going to pop this into a 350-degree oven for about 6 minutes. Okay, so while that's cooking, I'm going to start to work on the ganache filling, and there are 2 different types of ganache. There is an eating ganache that is creamy, which is what we're making, that is not going to get hard, and that contains heavy cream, chocolate, and butter. That butter helps keep it soft where it's edible. There's also a pouring ganache, is one that it's not that it's not edible, it's ones that you make and you're going to say pour over, if you were making petit fours or something like that, like you wanted to put a chocolate glaze over a cake. That is just heavy cream and your chocolate. And so you'll do that because that's going to firm up a bit more than what this is. This is going to firm, but it's still going to say soft. And so I'm going to show you what we're going to do. It's again 3 ingredients. It is simply just heavy cream, chocolate, and butter, and that's it. And so while that is cooking, because you want to have that baking and then have that cool down before you pour the filling into it. Show you guys. Okay, so for this recipe, it is 2 cups of chopped chocolate. Now I have Calibit chocolate in here. I get it by the 11-pound block. I know that seems like a lot, but sometimes it can take me a year to use it. Sometimes it's a couple years to use it. It's fantastic chocolate, but here's the thing. You don't have to have the super fancy chocolate. This is just a preference for me. You can use chocolate chips and they will be totally fine. You can use dark, semi-sweet, or if you like more of a milk chocolate, do just milk chocolate for the ganache. It's also going to call for 1 cup of heavy cream. This does need to be heavy cream and not light cream, or not even just whipping cream. This has to be heavy cream. You want that fat content in it. And then it's also going to be a 1/4 cup of butter. And so what we're going to do first is, let me cut this up. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my saucepan and I'm going to put in my heavy cream. Now, when you're working with heavy cream, a lot of times it likes to, obviously because it's thick, stick to the sides. Just take your spatula and go ahead and scrape that down, because you'd be surprised how much heavy cream is actually on the side of your measuring cup or gets stuck there. And so that way you're not wasting any of it and you get the full 2 cups. From there, I'm going to be adding in my 1/4 cup of butter, but I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces, so that way as this is beginning to heat up, this will melt quickly. The other option, actually, been a little while since I've done this, so let me correct myself. I am going to wait. I'm still going to cut this up into small pieces. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've done this, so I had to stop the camera for a minute and get my thoughts together. I'm just cutting it into slices, and then I'll just cut it down the middle, and again cut it in squares. What I'm going to be doing with it is I'm going to set this aside. We are going to take this heavy cream, put it on the stove, and we're going to bring it to a simmer where just where it's warm enough where it's bubbling around the edge, and then from there we're going to pour it on top of the chocolate. So before we get that going, I've got my bowl. I have my 2 cups of chocolate. I'm going to go ahead and pour it in here, and you can see most of it's small pieces. There are a couple of pieces that are a little bit bigger, or they should melt. If they don't fret. You can just warm this up for like 15 seconds in the microwave. We'll get to that point if it doesn't come together all the way. So I've got my milk, my heavy cream over a medium heat, and what I'm looking for is for a film to start over the top and little bubbles around the edges. That means the heavy cream is starting to heat through. Once it starts to bubble on the edge like that, you are done. You just want to turn it off, and then let's go pour it onto our chocolate. Okay, so again, chocolate's in the bowl. Now we are going to take our heavy cream and we're going to pour it over the chocolate like this. I'm just going to take my spatula and make sure that I can get out all of the heavy cream like that. Set that in the sink, and then now I'm going to get I'm gonna get my spatula. What I'm still gonna, my whisk, but I'm still gonna use my spatula. I just wanna stir it around just a touch to make sure that all that hot heavy cream is getting on the chocolate so it will melt. We will use the whisk to kind of bring it all together. And then at this point is when I'm gonna go ahead and drop in the butter. So, and then that way it all kind of melts together. And then from here, I'm just going to use my whisk to bring it all together. Okay, and that's it. That is all together. Now it's really, it's all together now, and it's really thin, but this will begin to thicken as it cools, and it will set up. Okay, and then while the heavy cream was going, the crust did finish. It only bakes about 6 minutes, and that's it. When you pull it out, it's going to be a little on the puffy side. It's almost going to look underdone. It's not, though. It was really, I don't want to say soft yet wet. It just looked like it maybe wasn't cooked all the way through. It's not. You just got to let it come out and cool off first before we pour the ganache into here. Okay, so I'm going to let that cool, and then I will see you guys back in just a minute. Okay, so while our main dessert is cooling, I put the crust in the freezer and I set the timer for 5 minutes just to speed things along a little bit. I am going to actually be making a keto version of the chocolate ganache. I'm not going to be putting it in a torte. I'm just going to make the ganache filling. And so I'm going to do that while that's cooling, and we'll show you how quickly this will be put together. And I'm sorry for laughing. My husband's walking by, tiptoeing to try not to make any sound for the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to do a small amount because there's only going to be 2 people. Basically, both husbands are on keto and the wives are not. So I always like to make sure that I have a keto-friendly dessert, whether we go to them or they come to us, so that way we can all still enjoy what we've been doing for years now of getting together without having to worry that one of us or 2 of us are missing out on something. So to this keto recipe, I am using a 1/2 cup of heavy cream, and then I'm only going to be using a cup of, I have the Lily's dark chocolate baking chips, and so that is what I'm going to be using for their chocolate because it is sugar free and it's keto friendly. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure out 1 cup of the dark chocolate chips. And again, this is just a 1/2 recipe, which is going to be perfect for the 2 of them. Don't really need anything more than that. And then I'm also going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of butter instead of the 4. Again, I'm just basically halving the main recipe without doing a crust. And what I'm going to do is actually put them into these little white bowls that I have, and then I can cover them and chill them until it's time for dessert tomorrow night, and that'll work. Then they both will have something that they can enjoy while we are enjoying the tart. All right, so it's going to be the same process. I'm going to go heat up the milk. We're going to add it to the chocolate and then add in the butter, stir it all together, and then that's it. All right, so while the cream is heating up, I'm actually just going to leave the chips in here because this isn't that much. And I'm going to go ahead and drop the butter on top and get that set aside. And then as soon as the heavy cream is ready, we're going to pour it over here, and we're just going to mix it in here so that way I can easily pour it into these dishes right here. Okay, so I've scalded my milk, which is basically having the bubbles around the side of the milk. Or I say milk, I'm so sorry, I mean heavy cream. Heavy cream, always not milk. And so now I'm just going to use my spatula. I do have a smaller whisk here if I need it, which I probably will, but we're gonna go ahead and start with the spatula. Because this is sugar-free chocolate, when you start using ingredients that are sugar-free, or when it comes to things like almond flour or whatever, they don't react the same as regular butter, regular sugar, regular flour. So it takes either a touch more time or a little bit of tweaking to it. So we're gonna let this sit for just a few more minutes and then allow that heat from the heavy cream to really infuse that chocolate, make sure everything melts and that it'll come together. And so now this is my first time actually doing a keto version of a ganache. So this could be a total fail or this could work. I always like to try it and see if I can use some of the techniques that I would with regular food into things that are keto. And a lot of keto is real food, but when you start using things like this that are sugar free, they don't always react the same. So we're going to find out together if this is going to work. Okay, so just gonna keep stirring it to see if I can get it all to infuse together. Now if not, I may pop this in the microwave for just a little bit longer. Let's try the whisk and see if that helps. Again, I have some keto desserts that I usually stick with that I know, but I thought this would be a nice little treat. A lot of times we like to just do fresh berries with heavy cream sweetened with Swerve's confectionery, sugar and a little bit of vanilla extract, and you really don't feel like you're missing out on anything. But again with having such a rich dessert with the regular chocolate ganache, I wanted to make sure that they didn't feel left out. Okay, so I feel like with the stirring that's going on, or the chunks of chocolate, I'm gonna give it another minute. We may pop this in the microwave for maybe 20 seconds and see if that helps. I don't know if you guys can see or not. There's still a lot of chunks of the chocolate, so I'm gonna warm this up. And let me go do that real quick. Okay, I gave it 20 seconds. Let's see how that does. Always be careful when you're heating chocolate in the microwave. Usually 15 seconds intervals is what everybody recommends. I have a smaller white microwave, so I know I can do 20, but you want to make sure you don't burn it. And that is all that I needed to make this ganache. So I'm gonna go ahead. I may need to get one more bowl, but I'm gonna see. Again, this is really rich, so you don't necessarily need to fill it all the way. Of course, I'm making a little bit of a mess. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. Let me use my spatula now. Makes it a little bit easier. They will not, this is a really rich dessert. I don't anticipate either one of them actually eating all of this in one sitting, but it's something that can just be popped back into the refrigerator and enjoyed multiple times, because again, chocolate ganache is really rich, and so it could become, I know it's going to become too much. Like, I just know I've had plenty of chocolate ganache and it's too much. So, and then that's simply it. So this is the keto version for them to have, and now we're going to put ours together as the torte. Okay, so I put it in for, it's probably in there for about maybe 10 minutes, not quite full 10 minutes while I was putting the keto one together. So it has cooled off, and so I need to actually get, here's my spatula. Okay, so set that right there. You can see that the ganache is a touch thicker than it was before, but this will completely set up once it's in the refrigerator, so don't worry. Again, you want it to be still not set when you do this, just because you want to be able to pour this in to your tart. right. And I've got a little bit left in there, and I'm intentionally saving that just because I'm gonna, we purchased our favorite dessert wine tonight, so I'm gonna have just a little bit of it with the chocolate to make sure. And then you can, if you have, I don't know if you guys can see this, there's little tiny air bubbles in there. You can just take a knife or the tip of your spatula and just kind of work through and pop some of those bubbles. You want to be careful not to like scratch the cookie crumb, as you want them to be separate within the tort itself. The other way you can pop out a few of the bubbles is just take it and just lightly bang on it as well. But you can, now once this is set and you go to serve, you can serve it with fresh raspberries, fresh strawberries, or anything like that. So I am going to put this in the refrigerator, let it set, and then cover it, just because right now if I try to cover it, it's gonna all stick. And so that would be that. Okay, and that is it. That is the chocolate ganache torte. And so you will let it sit in the refrigerator for a few hours to set. Again, this is gonna set overnight, so this will be totally ready by tomorrow night. I don't have to worry. If you would obviously try to serve it too soon, you're gonna see your ganache just pour right out. So make sure you have a few hours to let this set up. If overnight is even better, the longer the better. This will keep in your refrigerator for 4 to 5 days, as long as it is covered and it's not exposed to anything in the refrigerator. But other than that, it's a really simple, quick, easy dessert to throw together. So I just want to thank you guys for watching this video and joining me today, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.